How can I, 26F, stop worrying and learn to accept my relationship with 26M for what it is? Together 8 years, married 3. My husband and I are each other's best friends. He's the only person I never get tired of. I love going places with him and chatting with him and just enjoying each other's company. I have no eyes for anyone else, and in many ways we are very, very happy. But I often find myself needling at the flaws in our relationship. For example, I am a big reader. It's my main hobby. My husband does not read. He likes YouTube and video games. Those things are fine, but I often find myself judging his hobbies and at times getting resentful that I can never talk about books with him, never really share this aspect of myself. Instead, I share it with strangers on the internet or the few friends I have. The other thing I often overthink is our sex life, or lack thereof. We have sex infrequently, and that has been a constant in our relationship. Honestly, it is not a huge issue. We both have simply lost interest in it over time. But I often find myself wondering why I don't crave sex with him, what I'm missing that other couples seem to have, etc. All in all, I think we have a great relationship and he has so many irreplaceable qualities, but instead I often find myself fixating on these more minor flaws. How can I focus on what's good here? TLDR, my husband and I have a great relationship, but I focus on flaws like non-shared hobbies and low sex drive. The best piece of advice I've ever received is, it's not reasonable to expect one person to fulfill all your needs. That's why we have relationships that are romantic and relationships that are platonic. From what I hear, you may just need some more friends. And having that outlet where you can express your love for books will help bring life back into your relationship. I'd recommend reading Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel. If you choose to continue focusing mainly on the shortfalls you perceive in your relationship, you will judge it more harshly than is fair. Learn to focus on what you get from your relationship, and how to seek out the other interactions you need in different ways. It isn't possible for one person to meet all your needs and desires, nor is it healthy. But you can cultivate all kinds of relationships with a wide range of people. Talking about books on the internet can be just as fulfilling as in real life, but if that doesn't quite satisfy you, then find friends or a club full of people who share that interest. It sounds like you need more friends as well as a therapist to help you process these feelings in a healthy way. The truth is, when it comes to hobbies, there isn't always overlap, and when there is, it still doesn't guarantee you'll both be on the same page. My boyfriend and I are both into film, but often vastly different films. And he fixates on one film for weeks at a time, reading about it, rewatching, discussing on Reddit, while I'm trying to see as many as possible to check him off my list. I agree with others that putting time into other relationships could take pressure off this one to be your everything. Do any of your family members or his like reading? I'm an avid reader myself, but neither of my husbands shared my hobby. That's what book clubs are for. You can't expect to fulfill each other on every level. I would be more concerned about your lack of sex life. Maybe see a doctor and have hormone levels checked and/or sex therapist. It sounds like you have relationship anxiety or possibly are OCD. It's totally normal. I would suggest looking into it more. You should stop judging your husband's interests. Frankly, reading books isn't more impressive than any other form of media consumption. Is wasting 10 hours on a James Patterson book more intellectual than wasting 10 hours watching topical political videos on YouTube? Secondly, stop judging yourself for your sex life. You and your husband sound like you have fairly compatible libidos, which actually puts you ahead of other couples who struggle to get on the same page. All your issues seem to stem from comparison. Comparing your husband to yourself, and comparing y'all's relationship to others. Just chill out. As an avid reader, I'm sure you know the C.S. Lewis quote that comes to mind. It's perfectly normal and okay not to share all of your hobbies and interests with your partner. That's what friends are for. If what you're needing is something that you can share with them, then talk to them and see if you can find any common interest, hobbies that you could do together. Maybe that will help you to focus on something good that you both share. The sex issue is a different kettle of fish, and I have no advice there, I'm afraid. It is all normal, not to worry. I also love reading, but my husband does not at all. I joined 2 book clubs. I have come to believe it's actually healthy to have some separate hobbies. He has a side business that takes up his free time, so I eventually found a way to be a part of the business and help out so that we get our time back together. We have designated times that we spend together and a date night every 2 weeks. It does get routine and boring at times, and less sex overall. Heck, I prefer shoulder rubs to sex, lol. Rest assured it's all normal. Your partner is not supposed to fulfill every need you have, and you don't have to meet all of your partner's needs either. No one person can do that. That's why we have friends, family, colleagues and classmates. Talk about books with those people. Although, your husband should be willing to listen enthusiastically to you talk about your interests even if he can't contribute to the conversation, just like you should be willing to listen to him talk about Call of Duty, or whatever. The sex thing, though, I can understand is an issue. Can you spice it up? Watch porn together and find mutual fantasies to explore. This won't fix all your problems, but my husband and I are similar in that I love to read and he prefers YouTube and does not enjoy reading due to habits from childhood. But he loves to hear me tell him the stories of the plots of the books that I am reading. It's been a great way to share what I love with him even if it's more of a storytelling than an active discussion. If you haven't tried that, maybe he'd like to hear about what you're reading. My saying is, don't date your clone. You'll end up hating them and maybe yourself. You stayed with your husband for 11 years. You know about his hobbies and other things. Maybe it's not just him that's the issue. Have you talked to him about this? You don't crave sex with him. First of all, the habit of reading can be developed slowly. At first you can let him read with you for 10 minutes, and then slowly lengthen the time again. Eventually I believe he will also like to read. Then, I suggest looking at your husband's browsing history on Pornhub, if there is one, and prepare for a wild sex session according to his preferences. Sounds like you two are in a rut. Why can't you talk about books with him? I used to read a lot but then I changed careers and reading fell by the wayside and I honestly haven't read much in like 8 years now. My husband listens to audiobooks constantly, he plays video games constantly, he does programming constantly. He talks to me about all of this and we have nice conversations about his interests even though they're not what I'm doing. He doesn't make you tingle anymore. Your relationship has become stale and boring. He needs to stop playing video games and ignite the fire between you. Instead of trying to enjoy each other's existing hobbies, have you considered exploring new hobbies together? It honestly sounds like you're a little bored of him and life in general. Try changing things up. Say yes to opportunities you would typically pass over. Find something friends, work, volunteering, other goals to give you passion. Honestly girl, leave. It's normal to have doubts, but you're gonna be with this man forever. So YOLO, do what you want, fuck who you want, because maybe your soulmate is in another state, or maybe they don't even speak English. But I've never even been in a relationship so you probably shouldn't even listen to me. Just ask for open relationship and find someone who is reader. All I know is what I read. After time, after the newness wears off, if you want to have a sex life you have to work at it. You have to make sex dates, talk about it, accept the fact that sometimes it will be better than others. Read about how other people deal with it. Sex will not be the same as when you first fell in love. We're not built that way. You're missing passion. Your post comes across as a clear lack of investment and effort into your relationship, on his part too. Mediation may help, especially non-dualism. Have you talked to him about it? Maybe once a year you can agree on a book together. My husband and I will read books occasionally but it's never the same ones, so nothing to discuss. What if he was into reading but not the books you read? Too long did not read. Other couples have bigger flaws, but you haven't dated enough men and you aren't putting things in perspective. Not to sound condescending or anything, what I'm saying is that you haven't been in a relationship with other adults, given the personal info. I reckon that every other guy would have character traits that don't fit your expectations. Your husband is just another imperfect person. Look at the bright side, you are best friends. The sex needs work, though. Have you tried Bumble BFF or a similar platonic friend-making app? Highly recommend. Your partner isn't meant to fulfill every need or conversation about every interest you alone have. The answer to your question is, go to therapy and do some personal work. This is a you problem, to be honest. My husband is in his 50s, he plays video games and I like to read. We have very few mutual hobbies. But after 14 years of marriage we still have an amazing and frequent sex life. The sex issue in your marriage far outweighs the lack of hobbies issue. Sex is like the barometer of relationships. IMO issues in that area are always because of other underlying problems. I think you're sad about the incompatibilities and values difference in your relationship. I also think you may be mistaking codependence and sunk costs for being happy and loyal. Judging him for his hobbies is an extremely narcissistic thing to do when you're his wife, the pillar of his life. Is there any chance the way you see him, and judge him, is the reason you don't feel drawn to sex with him? No one person will be everything for you or fulfill every need, and that's okay. It's not your job or his to do that for the other. Judging or resenting him for not having the same hobbies as you is a you problem. If you want to have more relationships with people who share your hobbies, seek those out actively. In terms of your sex life, I'd say stop comparing yourself to others and what you should be doing or wanting. Are you satisfied sexually? If so, then don't worry about other couples with higher sex drives. If not, talk about it with him and brainstorm ideas together. Please look up relationship OCD, ROCD, since it sounds like you may be experiencing this. It can cause you to fixate on the minor flaws in your relationship partner even if there are no major red flags and you are generally happy in your relationship. If you do some research and this sounds like your experience, the most effective treatment is exposure response prevention, ERP, which is a form of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. A therapist who specializes in anxiety, OCD treatment can help you. This treatment helps you become more tolerant of uncertainty in your relationship, and you will be able to have doubts and thoughts without fixating on them and allowing them to cause major distress. Please DM if you want to chat more about it, as I've been through this experience as well. Try growing up. Seriously. And if you want to save the relationship, try therapy too. The reading thing you can get past. The sex thing is a big deal. Because you two only have sex with each other, right? Whereas you can read and discuss reading with numerous people. You sound a little exhausting. It's so unfair to judge how he likes to unwind with his free time. How are his hobbies any less than yours? He's probably upset you don't try to engage in his hobbies either. How about getting over yourself and realize now everyone loves to read and they don't have to for you? I have a friend who is going through something similar, and I don't remember if it was a quote image I saw or a video on TikTok, but I remember it mentioning that it's impossible to find one thing that can accomplish all our needs, so how can we expect that from a person, people? Maybe you all can have a discussion and have days where you actively share interests. Like for a date night, you can read a chapter out loud together, or he can share his favorite video game with you. For the intimacy, maybe try spicing things up, roleplay, etc. Well, one recommendation is find a book club. Another is try some books on tape. There are some great ones on the history of video games and video game companies. Gives him something to do when he drives. Stuff like Stephen King of GRRM are wonderful if a person has certain tastes and appeal broadly. Amazing how many folks made jumps to reading novels after doing audiobooks. It sounds like you grew to be different people. That's not so bad right now, but you might be overwhelmed with FOMO in a couple of years. From my experience, I can tell you it hits around 30. This is my exact situation even to the friends part. I'm an introvert and he's an extrovert. And I've been struggling lately with the idea that I'm holding him back from being his best outgoing self, while also resenting him for wanting me to go out all the time. Do be complacent. Relationships require effort to thrive. The things you talk about sound to me like problems that can be solved with a little willing and effort. Your relationship needs a little tuning. Join a book club. I suggest that you try couples counseling and sex therapy. Good luck. Some good advice is to not get married at 23.